also a big member of ALTEC, which we also do. And we hope to have her around a lot.
All right, well, welcome everybody. I'd like to start off by having everybody introduce themselves and tell me what language or languages you teach or support. And also if you've worked with an interactive whiteboard before or not, and if there's anything in particular that you're hoping to learn today. So.
Okay, my name is Megan. I teach English as a foreign language down in Chile. I'm back for the year now. And I haven't used smartboards before, but I'm particularly interested in seeing how they can make the language classroom more interactive during a lesson, which is really the practice part and production part of the language class. I come down from Fort Collins, by the way.
I'm Adrienne. I came up from University of Denver today. I've played around a bit with the interactive whiteboards, but I've never actually used one in a classroom before. So hopefully I'll get the chance to do that someday soon.
My name is Josh. I am currently teaching English and Spanish to some extent, and I've also studied a few other languages, including French and now Mandarin Chinese. I live in Denver, but commute to Boulder every day of the week for classes and meetings and things of that nature. I like the idea of using something like this because chalkboards are so 20th century. Well, I don't like to get my hands dirty. And I don't like to see chalk on my pants and on my shirts. So the idea of not using chalk is really great.
That is one thing that's really nice about this. I'm also not a fan of chalkboards, never have been. So I'm in the process of trying to get our language classrooms to have whiteboards so that we can use this type of thing and get rid of the chalk.
My name is Aisha Jackson, and I'm an academic technology consultant here, and my role is to support the language instructors. So I support all of arts and sciences, but I have a particular place in my heart for languages, so that's my role. And I've used interactive whiteboards within a K-12 environment when I was teaching with the first graders, so yeah, different experience.
All right.
My name is Lin. I'm a Withee scholar in Department of Linguistics. I come from China, and I'm an English teacher in China. I'm really interested in this topic. That's why I come here. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm Rebecca Allison. I'm from the German department getting my master's, and I have used or seen this used in elementary education classroom when I worked in elementary school for a year. I've seen it used in a 6th grade through 8th grade classroom for French in middle school, and it's an awesome technology. The kids love it, so I want to learn how to use it too.
I'm Courtney Fell. I'm now working with ALTEC, and I've barely dabbled with this. I have played a little with smartboards when I taught at Front Range, but since we don't have that much going on here, I haven't had an opportunity to play with it very much.
Okay. Great. All right. Well, we have in our Language Resource Center, it's an actual smartboard, which is slightly different from the Mimeo. The two technologies are pretty comparable, though the main difference is when you're using a Mimeo, you need to use a pen, the stylus, to interact with the screen. So it's technology that really is fairly straightforward. There's a couple of things in terms of making sure that you calibrate it the first time you set it up. You know where all the pieces and parts are. But in terms of startup costs, if you will, for incorporating this into a class, it's fairly easy to use. So today we'll be doing a little bit more of actually using the board for some particular types of activities, because for me, what's key with using an interactive whiteboard is thinking about it in a way that is, can I use this for communicative language teaching? Because it's not always obvious when you think about a board, teachers up there writing stuff. How does that get people talking with each other? And so some of the activities that we'll do today will show how you can use a whiteboard to support communicative activities and to encourage people to talk to each other, and also as a report back mechanism for pair and small group activities. And the really nice thing about the whiteboard for that is it allows you to do a report back with pictures, with words that you write up on the board, and so it gives you a little bit more flexibility, especially if you've got a large class of students and you're having trouble managing a report back from a group activity. The whiteboard can be one tool that can help with that. And it can also be a way to start a discussion or support a discussion. And so there's a couple of examples of that in here. And then if we have time at the end, I'll talk a little bit about some of the technological details. One thing that is a hazard of using this technology with a ceiling-mounted projector is when you're designing things, you want to make sure you've got it at a level where you can reach. So, once again, not something that's terribly complicated, but just something to keep in mind so that you don't end up trying to reach all the way to the top of the screen when you can't quite get there. And so, we'll look at annotating pictures, texts, and presentations, an activity for practicing and learning vocabulary, how a whiteboard, interactive whiteboard can be used to facilitate pair and small group interactions, and also to teach reading strategies. Now, the interactive whiteboard as a presentation tool is probably the first thing that most people do with the whiteboard. It's the most obvious, and it's also the easiest to get started. Because all you do is click on your pencil icon, and then you can label things. So if I wanted to gloss these characters in hiragana, I can write that up there. If I know who this person is, I can write their name. And you can do this if you've got an internet connection, not only in a Mimeo presentation like what I'm using now, but you can do this on web pages. You can do this on images. And so it's really handy for things like when the third year class in Japanese last year, we were talking about New Year's traditions. And the osechi ryori, which is the traditional foods eaten around New Year's. So we were able to Google an image of osechi ryori and then label some of the various things that were in there so that we could then use that to continue our discussion about New Year's and differences between America and Japan in that regard. So you can annotate a web page, you can mark up an image, you can mark up your presentation. For languages like Japanese, it's particularly useful because a lot of times I will be glossing characters if we're doing a reading and students don't know what something is. I can write that up there, and then it's someplace where everybody can see it. So that is, and in terms of the language faculty at Colorado College right now, this is how most of them are using it, that they'll have a presentation and then they're able to mark that up as they go along. One other nice feature, and I'm guessing the Mimeo has this as well, but I don't know for certain, but with a smart board or an interactive whiteboard like this, normally the software will let you save what you've marked up. And this can be handy for a couple of reasons. Number one, if students are always writing down everything you say or writing down everything that's on the board, they're not fully paying attention to what's going on. So you can save what you write up on the board, and then the students can refer to it after class, which is something that can be really handy in certain situations. So the next thing that we'll be taking a look at this is a reading strategies activity that we did in the first year Japanese class. And can anybody tell me what they think this is? What does this look like?
Family tree.
Family tree. Okay, you speak no Japanese, and yet you can figure out what that is. All right, so what are some of the words that you would expect to appear in a document that's a family tree? What would you expect to see? And English is fine.
Mom and Grandpa.
Okay. How about some others?
Mom and dad.
Okay. Okay, any other words?
Sister, brother,
Okay.
sibling.
All right. So, right here, what do you think that might be? We've got 3 different characters. This one, and then a number. So what do you think the number is?
Age.
Age. Yep. And what do you think the other 2 characters might be?
Maybe wife and mother.
Wife and mother, okay. Any other guesses? Name. Okay. So, this one. So that is the character for mother. Now, how about over here? Got the same kind of thing. We've got a character, 2 characters, and then a number. So we've decided that this is the age. So based on knowing that that means mother, which one of these do you think might be comparable to that? So what do you think this one is? Or might be? Father. Right. Now, as you take a look at the family tree, what would you, if you were writing this up in English, what would you call that? What would you call that top row? Would you call that mother and father?
Parental units.
Parental units, okay. What would be another?
Grandparents.
Grandparents, yeah. So there's some interesting differences in this family tree in the way the Japanese think about family structure compared to how we think about it. And even without knowing a huge amount of Japanese or even any Japanese at all, you can make some educated guesses as to the information that's on the screen. So in this activity, having it on the interactive whiteboard means I've got the advantages of being able to mark up my document while having that document up on the screen. So unlike a regular whiteboard where I'd have to like get a printout or I'd have to print out copies for everybody in the class, using a Minio or a smartboard, I can very easily mark up and annotate a document. And then, once again, I can save that for later so that the students can refer to that after class and have that information available to them. Okay. In our third-year Japanese class, we also do reading strategies instruction, but we take a slightly different focus. Because in the third-year class, we go from first-year Japanese. My name is Sarah. I live in Colorado. I work at Colorado College. I like to read and to hike. To much longer and more complicated sentences. And there's really no bridge. You go straight from that first example into things with tons of dependent clauses that take up an entire paragraph. So the students do have some difficulties making that transition. So one of the activities that we do is teaching them how to analyze a complex sentence. And with the Smartboard or Mimeo, one of the fun things that you can do is highlight things. So who wants to come up and highlight the subject of one of the sentences?
Any one of them?
Yeah, pick one. The subject and the main verbs. Yeah, try down. Okay, try the ones down below. It'll be a little easier to reach.
And main verbs?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
Yep, that'll do.
Okay.
Did it? Okay. All right. I'll have you do the next sentence.
Okay,
All right.
that was fun.
One more. Since you do ESL, you're probably going to do better at this than any of us. I predict.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, one of the things when you're trying to parse a long sentence that I recommend for our Japanese students to do is you look for those main words and then you make a shorter sentence out of them. Okay? So, with what's highlighted in the first sentence there, Rebecca, can you make a shorter sentence out of that that makes sense?
The country is long and narrow. The
Okay.
country is long.
All right. Adrian, how about the one after that?
The country covers 3,000 kilometers.
Okay. And Aisha.
The country,
So,
There are-
because.
okay, Japan has 4 seasons. There are 4 seasons.
Mhm. Okay. Now, I would probably make it even shorter. I would eliminate the prepositional phrase at the beginning and just say Japan is long and narrow. And make it, try to get that down to my elemental sentence. And these are translations, English translations of sentences that we've worked with in the 3rd year class. And so what we're trying to do here is to get them to identify the main pieces and then identify the pieces that describe other pieces so that you can make sense of it when it extends, if it's a sentence that extends for quite a ways. So having the highlighting pen and having a reading or set of sentences up on the screen makes it fairly easy to do that kind of analysis. And so this was another example for reading strategies. When the students are reading, they get to a word they don't know, and then they stop. Then they go to the glossary, and they look it up. And 5 minutes later, they finally get back to resuming the reading. And so what we encourage them to do is to continue reading for at least a sentence or two, because oftentimes whatever that unfamiliar word is will be defined later on. So, in Japan there are 47 todo fuken, 1 to, 1 do, 2 fu, and 43 ken. The 1 to is Tokyo to, the 1 do is Hokkaido, the 2 fu are Osaka fu and Kyoto fu, and the rest are ken, like Shizuoka ken. So what do you think those words might mean? cities,
Governmental cities.
governmental organizations. How do we divide things up in this country?
States,
States,
prefecture.
prefectures. So Tokyo, Osaka, and Kyoto are cities, but they are also prefectural units. But they distinguish those from things that are just plain old prefectures without a central city to them. And then Hokkaido is in a class by itself. It's a prefecture, but it gets its own dole because it's Hokkaido. All right, is there anybody who does Spanish in here? Spanish, okay, good. In this activity, what I'd like you to do is go through the first and the second paragraph and highlight anything that's in the preterite tense.
Okay. Sure.
And if there isn't anything, feel free to move down to the next two paragraphs. Oh, my goodness.
Keep going.
Keep going. Yeah. Hopefully there's one of them. Get to the end of the fourth paragraph. One of our other Spanish speakers come up and do the same thing for the next set of paragraphs.
Why?
Keep on? Yep, keep going. Okay. All right. Okay, now, highlight the imperfect.
Oh, geez.
And if you can't reach the stuff at the top, don't worry about it. Start wherever you can.
Oh no, just kidding. Undo, that's not all.
Okay. So, in Spanish, kind of like in Russian and some of the other European languages, the difference, you've got a couple of different past tenses that you're working with. Preterite, imperfect. Students often have some difficulty with that because we don't divide the world up the same way in English that Spanish do with past tense. So with an activity like this, you're first of all putting that grammar in the context of a narrative, of a story. And then you can have them do what we just did, highlight those words, but then say, okay, is there any characteristics that link the green sentences together? Is there anything that we can infer about what's going on there? Are they describing the characteristics of a person? Are they talking about a place? Are they describing a situation? Is it an action? Is it the result of an action? And so you could have the students, you could start off having them do this in groups if you wanted to, with a printout, and then have them come up and do the activity on the board. But doing it this way is a good way for either students to report back, or if you're just doing it from the beginning as kind of a class activity, getting people up to the board to move around, but also getting it so that everybody in the class can see it. Which, if you've got a large, in Japanese, in some ways, I don't really need to use the smartboard because the class sizes are so small in a lot of cases. I can just use handouts and I don't need to use the whiteboard. But where it's nice is in those years when we have 12 to 15 students and handouts are just not going to work. It's nice to have this whiteboard available for them to do the activity, because then I can see what each group knows or doesn't know, and then the groups can talk with each other. And then for something like this, it also gives you can write up which sentences go into which categories, and once again at the end you can save that and the students can refer to it after class. So that's another, this is more, I guess I would consider this more of a grammar sort of review activity than reading strategies. And now we'll take a look at some activities that are more explicitly designed for parent groups and vocabulary practice and review. So for this, I'd like to divide you into 3 different groups. So how many people do we have? 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, so if you could count off by 3s.
1.
3. 1.
2.
3.
1.
2.
Okay, so 1's over here, 2's here, and 3's where Josh is. Unfortunately, I don't think this particular model does. There are smart boards that are multi-touch now. I don't know if there are Mimios that are multi-touch. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, our smartboard doesn't need it, so
This is some different, yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and there's also something called an Aver pen, which is actually a pen input system that is multi-touch within the Aver pen software. So you wouldn't be able to have students annotating a web page all at the same time, but if you created an activity like this in their software, you could have them interacting with the board, multiple people at one time. I've worked with it a bit. It's a bit touchy, and so we haven't really adopted it widely because it's a little bit temperamental. And I'm pretty sure there's a couple of other like tablet type things that are multi-touch. So when I put together this activity, the first year that I used our interactive whiteboard with our Japanese class, one thing I very quickly figured out was going to be a big problem, was whoever was at the board was paying attention, and the other 12 people in the class were talking to each other and not paying attention to what was going on with the activity. And so I said, well, is there any way I can put together an activity where there's a certain amount of incentive to pay attention to what's going on the board, because your group is going to come up, might be the one that comes up next and has to do the next activity and needs information from the first one in order to do that. So this is a multi-step activity, and I forgot to bring my dice, so we'll do Janken Pon, rock, paper, scissors. One representative of each of the groups, please. Get together here in the middle, and we'll decide who goes first. Who's going to do this activity? Okay.
I don't actually know how to play these games. I kind of
Okay.
Oh no.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot, and then you can either give out scissors, paper, or rock. Yeah. Yeah.
Rock.
So rock, okay. Okay. Well, we have to do it all at the same time, right? Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Oh, okay, so you beat both of us because the.
Okay.
somehow I always win, even though I don't know what to do.
So your group, and we won't do all of these because there's some other activities, but come up and you are going to unscramble one of the words, and then Adrian will unscramble a word, and then you'll unscramble another word.
By unscramble, should I just write what it should be, or?
You can do that if you want to. Just select the pencil tool, or if you want to drag the letters into the proper order, you can do that too.
How do I do that? Let me drag
That's about that. And then just click on the letter that you want to drag, and then drag it to where you want it to be.
Okay, well.
All right, very good. Next up. To drag, yeah. If you want to write, you'll click the pencil. Yeah, hold it down. Here? Yep. Oh. All right.
I think I'll just write it.
Okay.
Here's my.
spelling.
Easier.
All
Sometimes
right.
struggle so much together.
So, representative from each group, rock, paper, scissors, who's going to do the next activity?
Oh, are we rock, paper, scissors? Sorry.
Representative?
You can practice this way.
I guess I do.
Okay.
Right?
Oh, sorry, I started. Should we do it again?
Redo.
Yeah.
We're doing
Three.
1, 2, 3,
After
boom.
Oh, okay.
But Rachel, Rebecca had a good name for it. Row.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Shoot.
Oh.
Shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Ah, yeah, we're watching. Okay, one more. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Okay, so we both jump.
Yeah.
Off. 1, 2, 3. Uh-huh. Okay, you win.
All right, so your group is going to need to drag the sentences to the correct pictures. And the rest of the groups, you need to pay attention because if you don't know the names of the categories, you're not going to be able to do the next activity. So while they're dragging the sentences around, you need to try and figure out what kudamono and yasai and ocha are.
So you want me to drag the picture to the right?
You can drag either the picture or you can drag the sentence.
Yeah.
Is that our?
Yep.
Oh,
Yep,
us winning means we have to participate.
that's right. That means you've just won your turn at the board. Right?
I hear you the video presentation software, you have these slides.
Yep. And it's a lot like PowerPoint, except that it's a lot easier to move things around. Yeah. Yep. Very similar, and in fact, if you've got stuff in Smart Notebook, you can import it into. Vice versa, I don't know, but all of this stuff was originally in Smart Notebook, and I imported it into the Vimeo.
Do you have maybe?
Yeah.
I get that.
I like a challenge.
Well, that one is kind of hard to sing.
I don't know what that is, but I know it's brown.
But that's the idea. All right. Okay. So now you have to drag the items to the correct category. So since your group hasn't had
Right. By default.
Do you want to?
Yeah, that's fast.
We were taking notes.
That's
good,
good.
that's
That means
good.
you're paying attention.
This size.
All right, excellent. So, let's say yasai.
For the moment. Okay, and the other two are going to be a little harder.
Yeah.
For the Chinese, what is, oh, cha, tea in Chinese? Cha, okay, so,
Okay.
and the sakana, unless you are familiar with that particular item from Japanese cuisine, it's not real obvious what that is, but that is fish. It's a fish paste. So, all right. And so for the final part of this activity, we're going to do a crossword game. So I will give you the pen. You have to write the name of one of those objects on the board. And then somebody from the next team has to get up and try to make a crossword out of it.
You mean that I just write the name of the...
Yes.
Oh, she in Japanese?
No. Well, you can write, because this is not a Japanese class. If it were a Japanese class, you would, of course, have to write everything in Japanese. But I didn't give you the words, I gave some of the words for in the first activity, so you can try it. If you remember the Japanese, great. If not, write it in English, and we'll throw in the... Let's switch you over to the pencil.
Just make one?
Yes, just one. All right, so then we hand it off to the next. And other team members, you need to help him if he's having trouble. Shout out suggestions. If he,
Flexible.
all right, very good. And now,
We're supposed to do the name of the food or the category?
anything that was mentioned in the lesson is fair game. The color names are also fair game.
Okay.
I did those in English rather than Japanese, but all right. So Adrian. All right. Do one more. I'm gonna try.
Oh, that's supposed to be it.
Yes, unfortunately, it kind of disappears. Okashi? Yes, hi. Yes, I is vegetable.
Oh.
So,
There's something with a K in there.
yes.
There we go.
We're going to pretend there's a black box
There is,
there.
yeah, there is space, so. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I'm looking at my words.
Okay. Fish, yes. Lettuce. It's actually a cabbage. Cabbage. But that's okay. So this particular activity is a bit more elaborate than some of the previous examples, which were basically just a scanned text or a document that we were marking up and annotating. This was created in the Mimeo notebook software. It's a lot like PowerPoint, except it's got some additional features so that it's easier to move things around when you're interacting with the board.
The key in this case, that the actual technical work of finding the images, putting the activity together was probably about 45 minutes. Where the hard thinking comes in is in actually putting together the activity and structuring it and integrating it with the groups and making sure, like I said, that the idea with this was to try and keep everybody paying attention instead of drifting off into different conversations and things. So this one is probably something that you might want to try tackling after you've used the board and some of the simpler ways, gotten used to it, gotten used to some of the quirks and things you have to watch out for, like where's the eraser? And switching between the different input modes, and watching the toolbar disappear occasionally for no reason at all. So it's a good idea with something like this. I recommend that you try something, one activity, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. Don't structure your whole class around it until you're comfortable working with it and until you're comfortable with some of the arbitrary things that it may do from time to time. If I were doing this activity in an actual Japanese class, what I would probably do as the last step is I would save this crossword, or I would print it out, give it to the students, and then the homework would be that they have to write the clues for each of the words. And you could divide that up into groups if you wanted to, say, or you could have each student write clues for each of the words depending on what level they're at. So this was something I actually designed for a conversation group that I do at the public library, where I have people coming in and I have no idea what level they're going to be at. Some of them may be total beginners, some of them may be fluent speakers. And so it's something that you can adapt in different ways to meet differing needs of the students that you're teaching. Okay, now, do you want to stay in your same groups or do you want to switch groups?
Same groups.
Same groups? Okay. All right. This is another vocabulary game, and this is actually one that if you wanted to do it in your own class, if you've got, the template is one that I got off of the Smart Exchange website. Somebody had already put together the Scrabble board. And I've got, back at CC, a Japanese version and a Russian version right now, and we'll be working on some of the other languages as well. But the idea here is that you can turn your Scrabble game into a paired or group activity in your class. Should have brought a knife. Are you? So, if I were doing this for real, I would probably be a little more careful about counting out letters, but yeah, 3, 3, 2, or
Guess I can help both teams.
you can. There you go. All right. So your team, and we'll do rock, paper, scissors again to decide who goes first. But when you've got a word that you want to play, then you'll come up to the board and drag the letters into the proper place. So, rock, paper, scissors representative.
Doing the 1, 2, 3 shoot.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, you're out.
Oh, you?
I'm out.
Paper towels.
This is English, yeah. Like I said, all of the activities have been adapted, except for the Spanish one.
Oh, but then he kills you.
Yeah, but who goes first in the killing process?
Idiots, we're all dead.
All this murder.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Oh, oops.
Oh, now you do.
So I can go first.
Okay, so you're with this team here? Or,
I guess I
Decide.
would
okay,
well, go ahead and pull your chair up to the
Be an
side
active
here.
member.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah, what it smelled like. Get.
Let's see.
Not very creative.
And it can be
What about? Oh, yeah, I was, yeah. Just make it work. Nice.
No, we don't, we have.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, your group is going first.
Yes.
No, because that's supposed to be an A, I think, isn't it?
thank you.
Yes. Or is it, I'm confused. Well, I will let you bring it. Okay, so designated word player to the board.
You can write it, but you can drag the letters from the right side.
From the right side.
Yeah. Okay, since that one's way too hard. Yeah.
See where we can get. That's okay. Oh, we got it.
Can I drag it back? This is interesting. I didn't know it was possible to do that. You just drag the infinite cloner to, Alright.
We want
Delete. And let's see, where did the... That one may not be draggable, so let's go ahead and just break down blanks.
Okay. All right.
That's Latin.
Are they
Yeah.
all languages?
Well, I don't have my official Scrabble dictionary with me, so I don't, I'm assuming Latin used in English, it's okay. So.
Some of the letters have one.
Yeah.
We have to build it on.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, that's.
Okay,
I tried to get rid of rain.
You can, yeah, come on the table there, and then.
Your word, I don't know.
I know it exists. Now I want to know.
So you can go ahead and.
Oh, wait, I need to mark the U, the use dates, because they're not using the use already here,
See,
right?
it's there, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got it.
So when you take the letters up,
Yep.
turn in the letters.
Yep, turn in the letters and then play your word.
All right.
I'm sure that's
Drag, if you can't reach the letter, let me know and I'll drag it down for you.
Oh, I have to.
Yeah.
So you were wrong, it was an A.
It is an A.
It is an A, okay, I was right.
That's okay.
Okay. Tracking you down.
Yep.
All right, great.
Yeah, big, yeah.
So, you know, if you were actually using this in a class, you'd have to decide, you know, how much time you wanted to spend on it. Maybe it would be a warm-up of 5 or 10 minutes at the beginning to review words, or maybe it's something that you do at the end of class when people are getting kind of tired and not paying attention. And how strict you want to be about the scoring and spelling and all that is up to you. A couple of things that I'll mention about this template. One of the things that's different about both the Mimeo notebook and the Smart Notebook software compared to PowerPoint, those letters that you were dragging over into the game board are generated off of something that's called an infinite cloner. And I think that's the Mimeo term. If it's not, I'll have to look it up. But what that means is you create an object and you can drag as many copies of that object into places on the screen as you want to. So if you were setting up something like a Scrabble game, if we were doing it according to the English Scrabble rules, you'd probably just make as many copies of the letter as appears in the game. But for a foreign language class, where you're maybe more interested in just having them practice words and not limiting the number of letters, you might choose to do this with an infinite cloner because it saves a lot of time in setting it up. And as I said, the template is available on the Smart Exchange website. So this was something that I downloaded and then I imported it into the Mimeo notebook. Mimeo will import any Smart Notebook files, so if you want to be, I'm sure Smart would just love me for saying this, but you can go to the Smart Exchange website, and if there's any activities there you want to use, you can download them and import them into Mimeo and use them with a Mimeo as well as with a regular smartboard. Now the other option, obviously, especially if you wanted the students to practice handwriting, which in Japanese, I might want them to do that because they're dealing with unfamiliar symbols. You can have them handwrite the letters up there as well. It may be a little bit harder to read on this kind of a game board, but if you modified it so you didn't have all the colored squares, you could also have them practice their handwriting for playing this particular vocabulary game. And so this is one that, I mean, I downloaded the template, and I actually delegated it to a student worker to make the letters, but I don't think it took more than about half an hour to put it together. And we're in the process of doing templates for the various languages that we have, so if it's something that you'd be interested in using, let Mark know, and I can, or you know, Adrian, you can get in touch with me directly, and I'd be willing to share whatever templates we get put together. Okay, so the next thing that I'll demonstrate is a couple of different ways that you can use the interactive whiteboard to start a discussion or continue a discussion. And this was another activity from our third-year Japanese class. In Japanese, when you write a semi-formal letter, you're expected to open that letter with a set phrase that relates to the particular season. And so these are translations of some of the set phrases that are used in January, February, and March. Now, one other thing, and I forgot the handout for this, unfortunately, but I will mention it verbally. We started out this activity with a discussion about seasons in the United States versus seasons in Japan. And so, where are all of you from? Where did you grow up?
Louisiana.
Louisiana? China? New Mexico? Okay.
Connecticut.
Connecticut.
Colorado.
Colorado! Great.
Oklahoma.
Okay.
I'm a military brat, so a little bit of all of
A little bit of everything. Okay. Now, I grew up in Minnesota. Minnesota. And so when I learned in school that winter began on December 21st, I said, you know, this really doesn't add up with my lived experience of life in this particular place. What kind of an idiot would say that winter begins on December 21st? Winter has been in full force in Minnesota for a couple of months before December 21st. So I'm curious.
I'm going to see if I can do something.
That's great.
Thing.
Excellent. But where you grew up? In the American calendar, we generally reckon, solstices and equinoxes. So the fall solstice, the autumnal equinox, is the beginning of fall. The winter solstice is the beginning of winter. Spring equinox is the beginning of spring, and the vernal or the summer solstice is the beginning of summer. So how did that work for you where you were? Were you like me saying, December 21st, winter, are you kidding me? What planet have you been living on? Or does that December, March, June, September thing kind of work for marking the seasons in your world?
Well, in Louisiana, there are cold days in the winter, but in general, the days are warm, even in the winter.
Okay. How about in China? And China actually uses, I think, well, Japan got its system for reckoning seasons from China.
Yeah, and in fact, for the common people, for example, in the November 15th, if the heating begins to work, and the winter comes.
Okay.
It's about right.
It's about right?
Calendar's about right.
About right? Okay.
Late November, I would say.
Late November, okay. Okay.